Gladiator II, the sequel to Ridley Scott's 2000 Best Picture winner, is finally here, and it has been met with some mixed reception. You know, early on in the year, the trailers that released garnered a lot of backlash from the public who thought, why is it necessary to remake Gladiator? It's 24 years later, what's the point? But among all of this, there were a lot of awards pundits who had been saying that Paramount and the studios were telling them how great this movie was. And so you had pundits predicting this for a lot of nominations, including wins for Ridley Scott in director. And since the reviews have come out, it seems that it hasn't lived up to that hype. So because of all of this, I went in with low expectations, and I have to say, while I didn't love it, I was entertained. You could tell Ridley Scott had an entertaining time directing this film. There's just so much spectacle packed into this. There's just non-stop awesome action. And if you go in just wanting a fun time at the movies, you're gonna get what you want from this. And all of this action is perfectly capped off with the grand sets and costumes and just all of the technical elements that go into this movie. There's so much sound, so many visual effects, and it all works in the film's favor in keeping you entertained. Where the film may lose some, however, is in its story. The most criticized aspect of this movie has been the fact that it is not as emotionally gripping as the first Gladiator. And this is 100% true. Everything with Paul Mescal's character Lucius and his wife, I felt nothing for. Even though in the first Gladiator, Maximus's wife and child were only given short flashback scenes, you still felt an emotional grip with what happened to them. This film, there's a disconnect with that. And because of that, there isn't a real emotional connection to where the story's going for a little bit into the film. It takes until Connie Nielsen's character Lucilla comes in where you start to get some of that emotional connection back. While it's fun to go along this action-packed ride, it's missing something. And with the story, it is kind of a rehash on the revenge part of it, and you know, it's just not as captivating because of that. But where I do think the story excelled was in the more politics side of it. You know, the first Gladiator didn't go into that as much. Yes, it talked a lot about the Senate and freeing Rome from an emperor and all of that, but the intricacies of the politics and the games that all of these people play to get power wasn't in Gladiator, and it is in this film. And this side is where Denzel Washington really gets to shine as Macrinus, seeing his ambition just wholly take over and just try to get as much power throughout the entire film as he can get. It's a joy to watch. Denzel Washington himself is the best part of this movie. Anyone who doesn't like the film will even tell you that. He is just so magnetic. His presence on screen just grabs you. You want to look at him every time something is happening, seeing what he's going to do. Because all of the actors, for the most part, act very straight. Denzel is always attacking this role from different angles and just keeping you on your toes. You don't know what he's about to do next, and there are things that he does that will surprise you, and it's just really awesome to see him having a blast in this role. Paul Mescal, I thought, was very good. You know, he doesn't quite have that A-lister movie star charisma that Russell Crowe had for the first one, so there's something lacking there. But I do think people are underselling how good he is in this film, because he is quite good. He's not bad by any means. A lot of people have been saying that he was miscast for this film, and yes, while you can tell that it is a case of an indie star plucked for the next blockbuster action film, he still brings a lot to the role. I think he could have played up the cool guy charisma more, but he serviced the character well. Pedro Pascal was not in the movie as much as I thought. I would have liked if he had more screen time, because what we were getting with the triangle relationship of him and Lucilla and then Lucius, I thought was very interesting, and I wish they kind of dove a little bit more into what Pedro Pascal's character was thinking of this entire situation a little bit more than we did. So yeah, while I had fun with a lot of these elements, the sets, the action, Denzel, Paul Mescal, all being great, I just thought there was a lack of something there at the core. It felt a little bit hollow. And maybe you'll feel differently because my friend who I went with was really engaged. He loved it. I, had a fun time in the moment. But for me, there's just something missing there. The more time goes by, I saw this film last night, the more time goes by, I'm just losing something. I'm losing a connection to that central story. And I think that has to do with the fact that Ridley Scott obviously wanted to make this to put us back in this world and immerse us in this world and entertain us with the action, but didn't have that original of an idea for why we're going back to the world of Gladiator. I saw someone compare this to what James Cameron did with Aliens to what Ridley Scott did for Alien, how James Cameron really packed so much more action into that, but this just doesn't have the same emotional connection with that, where, in Aliens you have Ripley and Newt's connection that really makes the movie what it is on top of all the action, and you have so many great side characters. There's not quite as much of that in here. There is the added action spectacle, which is what Ridley wanted to do, but as a standalone film, it doesn't work as well as Gladiator does. And that's a theme that I think a lot of people are going to feel, is that there are just things in here that just aren't quite as good as Gladiator. The cinematography I thought was fine. There are some really nice shots in there, but overall it just felt serviceable. The score, nowhere near as memorable as the original Gladiator, which was one of its best aspects. So there's things that just are good, but not quite there. So for all of that, I would give Gladiator II 3.5 stars. That's it for my review of Gladiator II, everybody. What did you think? Did you feel the same as me, that it just didn't quite live up, or did it exceed your expectations? Let me know, and if you liked what you saw here today and you would like to see more, subscribe to follow the odyssey that is Oscar season.